You're listening to the Supply Chain Sessions, the ISPAS Global Freight podcast, and I'm Kelly Vasey, your host. Each month, I'll engage with freight industry specialists to discuss key issues within the global supply chain and logistics sector, and talk about general themes and trends in freight forwarding. Welcome to today's podcast, which is entitled Common Customs Mistakes. I'm joined today by Becki Dunkley, our customs supervisor, who supports our customers every day with anything that occurs in the customs world. Now, I'm fortunate to listen to a lot of the advice that Becki and the customs team give to our customers each day, because the sales and marketing team is upstairs with our customs team. So we'll often hear the challenges that our customers go through on a daily basis. Becki, I hope you don't mind me saying you are the oracle when it comes to all things customs, and I'm confident we're going to have quite a fun chat today. Let's start things going. What is the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen on a commercial invoice?
I've lost track, to be honest, but I've had a think. So one of them, probably about 3 years ago, we had blood.
Blood?
Yes, as in of the human variety.
Okay.
It turned out they'd used the wrong customs procedure code.
Oh, dear.
It certainly wasn't blood.
What was it?
I can't even remember. It wasn't even anything to do with human anatomy or anything at all. It was just a general export, but they, for some reason, used an old chief CPC and declared it as blood.
Oh, dear. Is that easily done?
If you were to just process it, then yes. But luckily, we do checks. If we're unsure of something that's on documents, we check it out and question it. So
thank goodness, because we've had some funny examples, haven't we? Where we've had currency come through described as sort of toy money, haven't we?
We say a lorry load of chocolate coins at Easter time.
That's it.
Yeah, going to Ireland, and it turned out to be actual low denomination euro coins, not chocolate in any way, shape or form. We had toy guns that were to be delivered to a private individual that were not actually toy guns at all.
Oh, dear.
Needless to say, we did refuse to have anything to do with that.
Of course.
Yeah, we've had a leg.
A leg?
A leg.
It wasn't an actual leg.
No, it was a prosthetic leg for one of our customers whose company name shares that with a prosthetics company. So we did obviously have to question this, and obviously it wasn't our customer.
No.
We've had lorry loads of breast implants. We have had...
But have they been coded up correctly? Or
they have.
Okay, that's all right then. So that's
yes.
We've moved everything and anything. I was just keen. It's just interesting for people to sort of understand how things can get misconstrued by using the wrong code, I guess. So, like, obviously, currency as chocolate money doesn't work at all.
No, there was a lot more restrictions.
We do have good fun, don't we? But it's a challenge, and we find solutions most days. If customs clearance was a game show, Becki, what would the hardest round be?
In all honesty, the starting round.
It is.
It is. I think once the basics and understanding are there, the rest falls into place.
Yes.
But trying to get out of the starting gate is really difficult because HMRC are forever changing their rules and regulations.
They are. They keep us on our toes, don't they?
They certainly
on their toes. There's always something new coming in, isn't there? Sort of new rules and changes, new systems, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
Like I said, sales sit upstairs with customs, so I am privy to the odd comment of disbelief or sound of frustration, from time to time the odd expletive.
Yeah, I think the orange there kit is probably mainly filled with my money.
We do get some funny requests and comments from time to time. Tell me, what's the fastest way to make a member of our customs team roll their eyes?
Oh, I could be in trouble here.
Oh no, be careful.
I think you've got one-word responses from clients when you're asking for information.
Yeah.
When only one question's being answered and there's a list of them.
Yeah.
The usual response, you're our broker, so you should know.
And we don't. Well,
No,
obviously,
we
we
don't
know
know
we
the
have the
product.
skills and we know how to do things, but we can't tell people what they need to tell us ultimately.
Exactly, yeah. And I think the age-old one, our previous agent never asked this, or we've never been asked this
Yeah.
before, but in reality, some of these people are asked every week, that they still say the same thing. "You've never
Yeah.
asked us before."
And Taylor, just explain to everyone why it's so important that we do ask that information.
It's compliance and it's
Absolutely.
HMRC. We are ultimately the broker, but we do not know the product. We can
No.
give guidance, but we can't classify, or we have no idea the actual ins and outs of what that product is, how it's made,
Mhm.
and what items make it up. That is up to the person that's manufactured that or is selling
Of
it.
course it is. So I know, from time to time we do get frustrated customers call in and they're like, why do you ask me all of this information? But we only do it because we need to.
We
Um,
do, because we
but we
want 100% compliance for us, but mainly for
yeah,
the customers as well.
absolutely. We're not just being troublesome.
No.
Uh, and we've just said we're moving things all day, all night, different sectors, different products. So everything's so different. That's why we have to go into detail and ask on every shipment, don't we?
Correct.
So we're now a good 4 years post-Brexit, dare I mention the B word, and it's still very clear that people do need help and support when they're dealing with customs clearance. It just isn't an easy subject to master, I don't think, and rules are forever changing, like we've said. So do you know what? We're helping people every day, and that's still the case.
Yeah.
Let's talk through, because I think this will be interesting. What are the top 3 mistakes businesses make when shipping goods internationally?
I think the first one is rushing to get the goods collected and on the way.
Which is
Uh,
understandable.
it is, but with the ever-changing requirements, in not checking things beforehand and just getting goods collected, this is where it can get costly, because goods can be held
Absolutely.
at the border
Yeah.
while we're waiting for the correct paperwork or correct
Yes.
information, and this is
Yeah.
where the charges incur, and obviously everybody gets upset then.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
I think, again, we go back to the presuming that the customs agent will process everything without asking questions. We
Yeah.
have to ask the questions for the right reasons for
Of course
everybody,
you do.
not for us to be awkward.
No, I was going to say, have you ever seen a shipment delayed because of a typo, for example, sort of wrong HS code, missing decimal, that kind of thing?
Yes, more so for the descriptions.
Okay.
A lot of people will sometimes use the description of the tariff. They think they're being helpful by looking at the government tariff to get the correct commodity or
Yeah.
HS code,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they'll use the description that's on there. Now, Border Force will not allow goods to leave the country if they haven't got a proper description of what they are.
Mhm.
So that's when things get rejected and people get held at the border. So we then have to go back in, ask Border Force to reject the T1 and
Yeah.
redo the T1 with the correct description, get the invoice updated.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it can make things even more time consuming, can't it, if people
Yes.
make those mistakes in haste, which is why it pays to give it full attention at the
Yeah.
outset, like you said, the start of a game show.
Yes.
Almost.
Yes.
The product and the prizes are as exciting as a game show, though, are they? Although we could debate
Oh,
that as well.
I don't know. Yeah, sometimes when we've had really awkward ones and they've gone through.
That's it. That's the win. That's the win. Um, in your opinion, what do you think the most misunderstood part of customs clearance is? We could go through Incoterms,
Yeah,
valuation.
Incoterms
What
is
do
a
you think? What do you see? And what would your answer be?
Incoterms is a huge issue.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Up until CDS was introduced, when it used to be chief,
yeah.
you didn't have to enter Incoterms on customs declarations.
Hmm.
So for trying to explain to people the need for them now that
Yeah,
CDS is up and running and you have
yeah,
to enter them,
yeah.
it's a learning curve for people.
It seems
But
odd that it wasn't asked
this
for in the first instance,
well,
doesn't it?
this is it. I mean, an Incoterm is a vital part because it
Absolutely.
sets out your responsibility, what you're responsible for, whether it's the insurance, the
Hmm.
freight.
Hmm.
And if you've got the wrong Incoterms and your goods get damaged, you could
Yeah,
end up with a hefty bill.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think the other misunderstanding is the additional codes, which
yeah.
again, I can understand. I mean, why would somebody want to be asking you if you're bringing a drinking glass in if it contains cat and dog fur? no logic.
It's not the first thing that comes to mind, is it?
It isn't. And then you've got, are you planning on using these goods for torture? I can't imagine anybody actually admitting to it.
Well, you never know. You never know. You never know. Yeah, this is a real insight into some of the giggles that we have, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not us, people. It is our government.
It's the law. Yeah, it's the law.
It is.
So I've got another one for you. Why do people always assume that a sample means duty-free? Why do you think?
I think because, as a rule, samples are normally free, which is all well and good in your everyday life. But with customs, the point of HMRC, one of them, is to make money. And so every single item that comes in or out of the country has to have a value for customs purposes. And it has to be realistic. Yeah. Because samples are free, you've got to pretend that it's not a sample and that you're sending it at the price you would be selling it for, or receiving it at the price you would be buying it for.
That's it. Becki, from a freight perspective, we get goods come up, and obviously sometimes if it's plant or animal related, or if it's excise, anything like that. Other than those main sort of three, are there any certain goods that you would say always tend to cause a problem at customs, and what are the reasons for that?
Yeah, so military and dual use. Even when they're not military and dual use, but the commodity has the additional codes to declare it could be. Yes. Some of these have to go through checks at Border Force before leaving the country. Yeah. So we do have to be careful. And a lot of the machinery commodity, the beginning title of it on the tariff is nuclear reactors. Yeah. So if any of that is mentioned, obviously that rings alarm bells.
Of course it does.
Obviously, no. Yeah, with the situation in Russia, the government brought in new checks on everything in the 72 and 73 series of the commodities to ensure that none of the metals had been processed in Russia. So that has caused a lot more document checks where we have to upload all the paperwork. Yeah. And then, of course, you've obviously got the ever-changing situations. At the moment, there is foot and mouth disease in Germany. Yes. Any animal products of any kind coming from Germany, we're finding they're getting stuck at the borders for anywhere between 2 days and a week.
Yeah. And do you know what? It's logical that that's the case, isn't it? Because they're just making sure everything's safe. And that tends to be the issue. We say, oh, is it problematic? It's not problematic. We're just ensuring safety.
Absolutely.
Safety and compliance in every case, in all of these cases. That's the reason, isn't it?
It is.
So I wanted to move on. We've talked about sort of common mistakes and misconceptions. But, we do have a giggle. So we're moving on to sort of talk about any funny or surprising stories that may have occurred here at Espace Customs. Have you ever seen a company misdescribe their goods in a way that's backfired hilariously?
I think the couple that we mentioned earlier with the chocolate money, for example, they'd got the van loaded, and it was like, well, we can't do that. And again, the nuclear reactor, we had an export that was stuck at border control for 3 weeks. Yeah, because it had got the wrong wording on there. The majority of the time, we will check if we think the commodity code doesn't match the description on the invoice. We will question it. Yeah. Just to be on the safe side.
Yes. But what's the worst packing mistake that's led to a customer disaster, perhaps?
It wasn't so much a packing mistake, but we had a tiny plastic nozzle that had got Russian origin. It weighed about 4 grams. But it was packed in amongst 7 pallets that was around 8 ton, and it had to be found and removed. So that was an absolute nightmare and extremely costly. Yeah. And I think the other one is because of all the wood certificates needed for pallets. Yeah. If the pallets aren't showing the correct labelling, the Forestry Commission will get involved. Yeah. And again, that's costly in monetary and time.
Yeah. There's a lot to think about, isn't there? It's not a simple movement, a simple transaction, is it, these days?
No.
How rich would you be if you had £1 for every time that you had to explain to a client, we've always done it this way, it just doesn't work for customs?
I think I'd have retired after 12 months.
I think you would. I think you're 6 months, I think, Becki.
Possibly, yes.
Especially those 6 months post-Brexit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I'd be happily sunning myself on a beach somewhere.
Tell me what's the strangest thing a company has claimed as made in whichever country when it obviously wasn't.
We had an import coming from Poland. So the importer was adamant that they were Polish origin,
Yeah.
but the paperwork clearly stated it was Russian origin.
Nice try.
Yeah. Luckily, we managed to stop the driver at the border in Calais.
Yeah.
And told them not to get on the ferry.
Yeah.
And they took the goods back to Poland in the end. So it could have been a lot worse than what it was.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. What's the most unnecessary document you've ever been sent for a customs clearance?
A full brochure of a catalogue of all of the products that the company offers because I for the commodity code.
So you had to flick through it to find the right thing?
Yes, they wanted me to look through the whole catalogue and I'd still...
Did you?
I had a brief flick through. There were some very nice items in it, but none of it was there. I mean, it gave me some ideas, so I was able to give them a selection of what they could use for the
It was
commodity.
a bit helpful.
A little bit, but yeah.
Time consuming, but helpful. Not quite what we needed.
Very.
And are there any customs myths that just won't die? For example, if I declare it as a gift, I don't have to pay duty, that kind of thing.
Again, I think we're quite lucky. We don't really have the issues because we stop it before it gets to that point.
Yeah.
We occasionally get asked to use a lower value so that they pay less VAT, or to use a different commodity code so they don't have to pay duty. So we have discussions with our customers, and as I said, that they are really good. They know we do know what we're talking about. Absolutely. It may be frustrating, but they do listen.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So let's move on to tips and advice. What's the easiest way to get your shipment flagged for inspection so people know what to avoid?
Incorrect commodity or description, and under declaring the value. That's a huge one. So yeah, and then obviously Russian goods at the moment are a huge no. So have a think before you import anything with Russian origin.
What's a small mistake that could turn into a very expensive customs issue that perhaps could be avoided?
Not checking the requirements before arranging it. Like I said earlier, that trying to get that shipment off, we understand sometimes things need to be done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But if you haven't got the correct Incoterms and you haven't got somebody, if this is leaving the UK, if there's nobody in place to complete the import, the goods will get stuck. And this is where it gets extremely pricey. Sometimes the goods have to then be returned back to the UK. So it's not good to rush if you haven't got things put in place in advance.
Yeah. More haste, less speed.
Yes.
Or no haste. Just take your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how can businesses make the customs process smoother to avoid unnecessary delays? I guess we've covered that with the last question, really.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say is just ask for help.
Absolutely.
We are here to
help, don't you, Becki? I know you help a lot of people all of the time. That's why people come to us, because they like to have their hand held. And we're fortunate to have you to support them through all of that.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you wish every shipper would understand about HS codes?
That it's not us that ask the strange questions, it is the government, and the government can change the tariff from one day to the next.
Yeah.
So just because you either exported or imported using a specific code the previous week, it may not exist the next time you go to import it, but that's not us trying to be awkward. It is just the way it works.
No, that's it. Agreed. So just a bit of closing fun then, Becki. If you could make one customs rule disappear forever, what would it be?
Not so much a rule, but when HMRC do the updates of their systems and change commodity codes, it always seems to be of a weekend. And just because the commodity existed when you did the pre-arrival or the export, when it gets to the UK, it gets stuck because it doesn't exist. So I wish they could do something that would keep, if it was valid when it was pre-arrived,
Yeah.
it can stay valid until it gets here, instead of having to
Absolutely.
do a new import every time.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I hope people will take this on board. So
absolutely.
hopefully people will be listening. So to finish, what's your best customs horror story that perhaps every freight company should learn from?
I think, again, it comes down, ask the questions if you're unsure. As a broker, or whoever your broker is, they should be willing to help. They can't make the decisions, but they can offer the guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Be honest with your broker.
Yeah.
Keep your records and your documents and have everything in writing from your clients.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly remember that HMRC are not actually the enemy. If you
Mm-hmm.
do things correctly, they're very understanding in the event of a genuine mistake. They only go after the ones who purposely go along the fraudulent and non-compliant routes.
Mm-hmm. Becki, thank you so much. It's been so interesting. I'm sure people will really have enjoyed listening to this recording.
No problem.
I'll let you get back to work now because there's always a lot to do. Thank you to everyone for listening. We'll be back soon with some more nuggets of advice, freight or customs related, or just some interesting stories to help you guys with your supply chain movements. Thank you.